Hello everybody, my name is Quinn and welcome to my channel. So today we are going to be doing the book review for A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. You can probably tell by the tone of my voice that I absolutely loved this book. First, I'm going to be going into a non-spoilery section and then I'm going to be going into a spoilery discussion afterwards. But for those of you who don't know, A Court of Mist and Fury is Sarah J Maas's second book in her A Court of Thorns and Roses series, and that story follows Feyre. She kills a wolf in a forest and she doesn't know that it is actually a Fae, and the High Fae of the Spring Court of the Fairy World comes and tells her that you can either die or you can come with me. So she decides to go with him, and the story kind of follows from there. So if you haven't read A Court of Thorns and Roses or A Court of Mist and Fury, I would definitely suggest that you go read those now and then come back to this video. But I'm going to talk about the non-spoilery section first, and that is, I freaking love this book, you guys. This is definitely the best Sarah J Maas book to date, which is saying a lot because I loved Queen of Shadows, and this book just kind of like, it was mind-blowing and I absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Sarah J Maas created such a beautiful world, even more beautiful than what you saw in A Court of Thorns and Roses. She really manages to balance, you know, these breathtakingly beautiful scenes in the fairy world with these really gruesome scenes that also come out of the fairy world, and they're just described in such detail that you really feel like you're completely thrust in this world, and I really didn't leave this world until I left it, which is just so freaking amazing. The character development in this book is so spot on. The characters go through such a transformation from A Court of Thorns and Roses to A Court of Mist and Fury that you almost don't even recognize them if you were to look from A Court of Thorns and Roses to A Court of Mist and Fury. It's just a total 180, and I absolutely loved that aspect of the book because character development is so important. A Court of Mist and Fury was definitely my favorite read of 2016 so far, which is saying a lot because I really love Lady Midnight, but the romance in this book is so freaking great. I can't really say a lot about it without spoiling it, so that will be in the spoilery section. But this book also deals a lot with feminism, which I could make an entire video going on about the feminist themes within this book, but I will give you a few examples later on in the spoilery section. But Sarah J Maas just tackled feminism in a really great way, and bringing that to fantasy is just really important to me, so I really accredit so much praise to Sarah J Maas for doing that in this book. I would say though that if you are not really comfortable reading about sexual situations, then A Court of Mist and Fury probably isn't for you, just because it is a new adult fantasy and it does really go into detail about sexual situations, so if that makes you uncomfortable, I wouldn't read A Court of Mist and Fury, but if you are, then just expect that when the book, you know, progresses. So those were all my non-spoilery thoughts on A Court of Mist and Fury. Please, please, please go read this book. You will not regret it. It is so freaking great. Sarah J Maas has really outdone herself on this novel, and I can't wait to read the 3rd book in the series, and I'm kind of regretting that I read it so fast because now I have to wait a year for this book. So please go pick up A Court of Mist and Fury. You will definitely not be disappointed. And now I'm going to be going into the spoilery discussion where I go more into depth on my actual thoughts of A Court of Mist and Fury. So A Court of Mist and Fury starts by Feyre dealing with the aftermath of how she feels after killing those innocent Fae, and how much that is affecting her mental state and her relationship with Tamlin. I don't know how you can read A Court of Mist and Fury and still be Team Tamlin. I really don't understand it. I think that ship has sunk so freaking bad. I don't think that the Tamlin Feyre ship is ever going to resurface. So I'm kind of proud of myself because I never picked the right ship, but I totally picked Rhys in A Court of Thorns and Roses over Tamlin, and so I'm like, you did good, Quinn. So I don't know how Tamlin shippers are feeling right now, but they shouldn't be feeling too good. We get like 20 pages into this book and they are already engaged, and I was like, that's a red flag right there. That's a little soon, considering Feyre probably isn't the happiest because she killed people, and that's really taking such a mental toll on her that Tamlin just really can't fully understand. Tamlin is very selfish, and while he does do things to protect Feyre, they're all really to really make sure that he feels secure and safe, and he really doesn't really care about how she feels and what she wants. Now, some people saw this in ACOTAR, but I really didn't see this till A Court of Mist and Fury, how abusive Tamlin really is. It's more a mentally abusive thing than a physically abusive thing, but he actually kind of views her as his property. He always goes, "You're mine," and it's not really a reciprocated thing, it's more of, "I own you, I can tell you where to go, where to be, what you can do, what you can't do," and that just immediately did not sit well with me. Some people may say that's really like a character flip, like she just totally completely changes character, but I think that it's really not. We do see some glimpses of that in ACOTAR, and then it's just kind of furthered by what happens under the mountain and how much he wants to control her because of how much he feels like he failed her under the mountain and he saw her die. So I feel like the abuse is not that much of a stretch. I feel like some people might try to argue that, but I don't think that it's that at all. I don't think Tamlin's actions were in any way justified. I was just completely not okay with Tamlin in this book. Tamlin doesn't really care that she doesn't want this life. She is not used to all this luxury. She's not used to being, you know, this housewife sort of figure, and that's not what she wants at all. She saves people. She doesn't just sit back and do nothing, and that's really what Tamlin wants her to do. He also doesn't want her to explore any of these powers, and he's sort of subduing her in that way and taking away her power in doing that. It was really, really hard to watch Feyre sink into this shell. She gets very thin. She's kind of like mentally destroyed by what Tamlin is doing to her. It's not just what he's done to her, I understand that, it's what happened to the mountain, but he is furthering it by trapping her in there. And I was so glad that she finally ended up getting out of there with the help of Mor and of Rhys. But I was so proud of her for realizing that that wasn't very good for her and that she needed to get out. I was not too happy with Lucien in this book. I think that he really should have stepped in. I know that Tamlin, you know, is his high lord and everything, but Feyre is his friend, and I don't know how you could watch your friend being so degraded like that and not step in and do anything. He doesn't even try to step in and do anything in the later parts of the book where he's literally hunting her down. Can we talk about that? They're treating her like an animal. They're hunting her down. But even then, she doesn't believe her that she wants to be in the Night Court, that she wants to be with these people, and that she doesn't want to go back. And she's like, "You didn't do anything for me." He's like, "I couldn't." And she was like, "You could have." And I just couldn't believe Lucien when what he did, and I think that it's going to take a lot for Feyre to trust him again. And I think that we are going to see that in the next ACOTAR book, and but it's definitely going to be a long transition before they can actually be friends again. But I think there is some salvaging in their relationship, especially when it comes to Elain. I wasn't really surprised at the Elain-Lucien mating. I kind of thought it was kind of predictable by the way he, you know, immediately ran to her after she was put in the cauldron. But I think that definitely makes room for Feyre and Lucien to reconnect in the later books. But it's going to be a long time coming, and I think that Lucien is really going to have to prove himself to Feyre so that he can be Elain's mate in the truest sense of the word and they can actually be together, because Feyre is not going to let him near her sister after the way that he has treated her. I just really loved all of the characters in this book and the new characters that we were introduced to. Rhys's whole inner circle. It's just such a family, and that's not something we saw in A Court of Thorns and Roses at all. Feyre's never really had this like close-knit, tight unit. She's, you know, she's had her sisters, she's had her dad, but she's always felt kind of lonely and always kind of felt like she didn't really belong anywhere. She didn't belong in the Spring Court, she didn't belong with her family at home, but she's really found a place in the Night Court and somewhere where she can joke with people and they all treat each other like family rather than opponents. Even though that his inner circle doesn't really know Feyre too well, they still do everything in their power to protect her, and not just because of Rhys. I think that they do really grow to love Feyre, and they're not just protecting her because Rhys tells them to. They all really do truly come to love each other, and that was just so nice to see Feyre come into such acceptance when she's never really felt that before. Sarah J. Maas wrote a really big book, but it was so needed because we got so much backstory on every single character in this book, and it just enhanced your experience so much and your understanding of these characters. Cassian and Azriel's, I don't know if I'm saying their name right at all, but their backstory was just so heartbreaking in the fact that they really had to fight for themselves their entire lives, and that Azriel really was kind of abused and tortured as a child. That really broke my heart, and how that kind of affects his views on relationships even now. I think that this dynamic has allowed for so much room room for new romances in the third book. I think that by the end of the series, which I can't believe there's only one more book in this series because I feel like we have so much still left to go, but I think that we will see more and Asriel together, but I think there's going to have to be some, you know, definite plot building to get to that point. And now that Nesta is immortal and she is Fae, we are going to see Cassian and Nesta together because I think their personalities just mesh so well. Nesta is so fiercely protective and so is Cassian, and they're both kind of have this, like, you know, strong exterior shield that they don't really let anyone in. I'm really intrigued by Armin and how she was just sort of this, like, really dark creature who got caught in, you know, this world when the world was first being created, and now she's trapped in this human body and she wants to get out. I don't know that if she's going to want to go back to her original form in the last book or if she's going to want to stay with Rhys's inner circle. I really don't know. I think there's so much potential for her character and so much more potential for backstory in the next book, and I think that we are definitely going to hear Armin's complete side of that story. We heard a little bit from Rhys, but he doesn't really give us the full story, but I definitely think that we have to see that in the last book. But all of these characters were just so great, and I can't wait to see where their stories go in the last book. Now, let's just talk about Rhysand. I am in love with Rhysand. He is such a great, complex character. There's so much to him, but he is so just essentially good, and I don't know if I've ever met a character who is just purely as good as he is. He does do some awful things, but they are for the good of his people, and you just get such a bigger understanding for Rhysand than what you get in A Court of Thorns and Roses. We get this great scene at the end of the book in the cabin when Feyre is accepting the mating bond, and we hear really Rhysand's whole backstory in his relationship with Feyre and how he had dreams of her under the mountain, and we get the whole backstory of Calamani, and it was just so great, and you really understand just how much he loves Feyre and how he would do anything for her, but at the same time he wouldn't restrain her. You know, he wanted her all this time, but he also wanted to do what was right for her, and he wanted to do what made her happy, and that's pretty much why I love Rhysand, because he puts Feyre first and not himself first, which I feel like Tamlin did not do. Rhysand is just such a feminist character, and you really do see the full extent of that in A Court of Mist and Fury. Rhysand really wants to liberate her, and especially in the way that he makes her train and use her powers. He wants her to be the powerful person that he knows that she can be, but not for himself, and while he does use her powers to kind of fulfill some of his own agenda, it's really more about her and wanting her to feel some sort of sense of self and that she has some sort of worth. Like, you know, you're your own person and you deserve to have everything that you want. And I just completely commend Rhysand for that. And on a more feminist note of this book, the feminism themes in this book were just so important and I love them so much. You even see this within Rhys's inner circle and the fact that half of his inner circle is male and half of his inner circle is female, and there's just truly this balance in between, you know, the court that you don't see in the other courts where it's mostly male dominated. And you also see that Rhysand wants to train female Illyrian warriors. Rhysand just really fights for women's rights, and I think that's something subtle that Sarah J. Maas wove in, but I really appreciated it as a woman seeing all these things, and I hope that she continues to bring that in later books. This book is about so much more than just romance. It's about two characters finding their self-worth and how these two characters can help each other accomplish that task, and sort of how they build themselves up from this depleted state that they went through under the mountain. Feyre has to recover from the aftermath of killing these innocent Fae, and Rhysand has to deal with the fact that he was Armantha's whore and that he did a lot of horrible things to protect Velaris. I could not believe how beautiful Velaris was. I want to go to Velaris, and just seeing that that's what he had to protect, you just gain so much respect for Rhysand and that he really does just have a true heart of gold. I think that there's so much potential for the next book. I absolutely cannot wait. We have just so many twists in that last like 50 pages of the book. We have Jurian alive, which is just, it's just not good. And we have, you know, Nesta and Elaine are immortal Fae now, like what? And we finally end on the final scene. Tamlin takes Feyre back to the Spring Court, but it was not by force. Feyre actually allowed him to. And at first I was like, Feyre, what are you doing? I could not believe that she willingly let Tamlin take her back to entrap her again. And I was like, this doesn't sit right with me at all. And then, to even further the insanity, the craziness that is Feyre, she says, oh, you can break the mating bond now. What? I was like just shaking in my bed. I was like, Feyre, you cannot do this. You and Rhysand are literally perfect for each other. You went through this whole book to to accept the mating bond and now you're going to break it. It didn't make sense to me, so I was really glad that there was a calm, rational explanation for that. Feyre was actually the High Lady of the Night Court and that she is an equal to Rhysand, that she has equal responsibility in protecting the Night Court, and that Feyre is going to be the spy in the Spring Court and try to take Ianthe and Tamlin down. And I was just like, yes, she is actually going to be doing something on her own throughout the entire next book, and I just can't wait to see where that storyline takes her. I am a little afraid that she's going to be influenced by Tamlin in ways that I don't want, but I think that she's grown so much in this book that she really can stay true to herself and true to Rhysand and just really stick to her morals and everything that she has learned in A Court of Mist and Fury about herself. I think she'll be able to remain true to that in the next book. But I think we just have so much room for so much action in the next book, because I feel like while there has been action in A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury, a lot of the action happens in like the last chunk of the book, but I think that the last book is just going to be so action-packed because it is the last book and so much has to happen. We know the King of Hybern and all of that, so it's definitely going to be very interesting to see how the last book plays out. It's just a wonderful book. My favorite book that I've read this year by far. So these are my predictions for the next book. I think that Azriel and Mor are going to get together. Cassian and Nesta are going to get together. I think that Armin is going to release some sort of like huge power onto the world. I think that she's going to decide to ultimately stay in the fairy world. I think that Lucien is going to work together with Feyre to betray Tamlin, because even though Lucien is so tied to Tamlin, he knows what it is like to lose love, and I don't think he wants to lose Elaine again. But I think that there's definitely a lot of trust that has to be built back up there. I think that Miriam and Drakon are going to be a much bigger part in the last book, and I think that they were going to become allies of the Night Court, and that there's just so much of a storyline that has to be explored there that I definitely think will be in the last book. And lastly, I think they're going to torture and kill the hell out of Ianthe, because she's just done too much shit to stay alive. So those were all my thoughts and opinions on A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. If you couldn't tell, I freaking love this book. 5 out of 5 stars, but definitely recommend it to everyone. I can't wait for the next book. I'm too excited. I'm too pumped for it. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I will see you next week. Bye guys. Today's topic is the 5 characters you are most like. The characters that you are most like.